their thoughts on parking in Winchester to make sure that those are incorporated into this preliminary management study and incorporated into and considered as they make their recommendations on how to best utilize parking and the existing parking we have in Winchester. So with that, like I said, we want to be able to hear from you. So I do want to introduce our two consultants from Tool Design, Jeff Rosenbaum and Brent Oltz, if you guys want to take it over from here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Rich. My name is Jeff Rosenblum. I'm the Director of Planning for the Northeast for Tool Design, and I'm joined today by Brent Oltz, who's a Senior Planner with Tool. For those that aren't familiar, we've been doing a fair amount of work with Winchester, but we are a nationally recognized firm leading kind of a leading planning, engineering, and landscape architecture firm in the US, specializing in public realm infrastructure for multimodal planning. And it's a pleasure to be trying to tackle some of these sticky parking issues with you guys. So the agenda for today, the plan is first to get a sense of who all is here, and Brent is going to lead us just through a quick thing just to get a sense of who's here. I guess, wouldn't say who's in the room today, but I guess we're all in our own rooms, but together in this Zoom room situation. Then we're going to give a quick overview of the purpose of the parking study, and then we're going to get to the core of what we want to do, which is a facilitating listening session for us, as well as the town staff and the select board members, to hear what folks who have joined us today have to say. We're going to break it up into three parts. First part is, what are issues around parking that people are seeing and feeling today? So the current kind of observations around parking issues. The second is, what are some short-term solutions that you folks feel that the town should take under consideration? And that's going to be a part of this kind of mini parking management study that we're doing. And the third is thinking longer term. What are the concerns around longer term issues around parking, such as proposed development projects, longer term commuting habits, or other developments downtown that people want to give us some feedback on. And then at the end, we're going to spend just a little bit of time setting the stage for the longer term piece by thinking about long term, kind of getting in a longer term mentality around parking and introducing some strategies, just as initial food for thought that Winchester might consider in the long term as a way to keep the downtown vibrant and accessible, while at the same time managing the demand for parking that is so important to everybody, and the survival of the town. And then we'll end with a sketch of the timeline for this study, so people get a sense of specifically what the plan is. So with that, I'll pass it to Brent, who's gonna give us the overview. Don't forget the mic.
Thank you, Jeff. So as Jeff said, we want to start with just getting a sense of who is in the room today. So if you would please open up a browser window for a quick kind of survey that's going to show up on the next slide. So you can go to www.menti.com and enter the code. You'll see a prompt to enter a code, and that code is on the screen. It's 85624743. And if any of you are joining by phone or unable or don't wish to participate in this way, that's okay. You can also enter any answers you'd like to in the chat function. So I'll just give everybody a quick moment to open that up. None of your individual answers here will be recorded. This is just to kind of give us a sense of who's joined the meeting. Okay. Move to the first question here. Which best describes you? And we have 4 questions. So first, just tell us which best describes you: a business owner, a resident, a member of the town staff, or another interested party that doesn't fit into one of these 3 categories. So as you answer, your answer should pop up on the screen. I am not seeing the answers popping up here. Are you all seeing, I have a slightly different view. Jeff, are you seeing answers popping up on the screen?
So,
When
Brent,
I use that code, I think I'm getting a different question, so it might have just started.
yeah, Brent, I've got different questions in front of me with this code.
Oh, okay. It's 85624743.
Yeah.
Okay, let me, sorry about that. Give me one moment to see what's going on here.
It appears that everyone is receiving the question when they type in that number is what longer term parking concerns do you have?
I see. Okay. So we should be, let's try it this way. I'm just going to share a different. Sorry about this, folks. Just give me 1 second to try to resolve this on the fly. Okay, has the slide question, are you all seeing which best describes you?
Might have to go back a slide just so we can see the Menti number again.
Jeff, is this working?
No, it still says the other. That's all right. We can.
Okay, why don't we move on?
Pass through this.
Perhaps I'll show you what the questions are here, and perhaps as when we enter the listening session phase, as we invite you to speak up. Perhaps you could just speak to which best describes you and kind of what your orientation is for the meeting. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties here. The next question we wanted to ask is what kind of business you own. We also know some of you might not own a business, but might be otherwise attending in some other capacity. So if you could also speak to what kind of businesses downtown you most often go to. The third question is how long do your visitors typically stay? This could also be how long do you typically stay on a visit downtown? Anywhere from under 30 minutes up to 4 or more hours. And then finally, which parking need most concerns you? We've outlined a couple of them here: parking for visitors, parking for employees, and parking for commuters.
So Brent, now it seems to be working, so we can wait and see
Oh,
if people
okay.
want to try it. It's now on the correct thing. Aha.
Great. I joined the meeting late. Looks like we've got a lot of immediate responses for parking for visitors. Jeff, I can't quite make out the number at the bottom. Is that, can you read that to me, the number that I've
10.
taken?
Yeah,
10.
so 10 total.
Great. Just a minute or so longer. So it looks like, yeah, parking for visitors is really the dominant concern here, but not the only one. Parking for employees is showing up as well. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think what we're seeing here is that the visitor parking really is the primary, but not the only concern here. And I think this is important for us to highlight that certainly that's probably where a lot of the parking need is coming from downtown. But we want to also be attentive to the different needs and the different ways that parking for employees and parking for commuters can be accommodated. So kind of balancing those needs and finding the right way to accommodate each of those is going to be the approach to how we think about managing parking overall across the downtown. All right, let's move on to the next item here. So just a little more information on why we're doing a parking study. And actually, before I launch into that, I just want to mention again, we'll have another opportunity later in the hour for us to use this survey tool again. as part of a prompt for our listening session about the issues and concerns that you have. So please just know that that opportunity again for you to weigh in is coming in and to speak yourselves. That said, if there's anything that you'd like to mention during the course of this short presentation, please don't hesitate to enter it into the chat, as we'll be taking a look at that throughout as well. So to inform the discussion, let's talk about why the town is doing a parking study. As has been mentioned, this is a mini study, which means we'll be moving quickly to address three primary purposes here. The first is to identify issues that are currently affecting downtown parking. We've heard about some of those issues already. We've heard about trade-offs around outdoor dining, the range of different daytime and nighttime uses, needs for employee parking, for deliveries, for commuter parking. So we'll be investigating these and other issues and understanding what those other issues are as part of why we want to have this listening session today. The second purpose of the study is to mitigate those parking issues in the short term. So for that, we'll be focused on quick and easy implementable solutions like signage changes that can be put in place, particularly those before the holidays, but those that really can be put in place quickly to address kind of short-term concerns. And in that same realm, we'll also be creating a mitigation plan for parking impacts of the MBTA station construction and other near-term challenges. And then once we've addressed those short-term issues, we'll move on to the third purpose here, which is the longer-term policies and demand management frameworks that can help solve parking issues in the long run. And that analysis will include an understanding of future projected development and commuter patterns. So that's what's in the parking study. What is not in the parking study? Since this has, or what is and is not in the parking study, the study has a relatively narrow scope. And as I said, we're going to be moving quickly. So we want to be really clear with you about what this is intended to deliver. The study is going to evaluate things like the parking needs of different downtown user groups, such as those we laid out before, businesses, commuters, the schools, town employees. We'll also be evaluating the available downtown parking inventory and how it's being used currently. We'll be looking at current policies and regulations that govern that use. And we'll be evaluating what we know today about the trends impacting future needs like development plans and commute patterns. So the outcome of all of that analysis will be both short-term and long-term recommendations, like I mentioned on the previous slide. This analysis will not include several things, one of which is a detailed utilization study that establishes a baseline for parking demand and then proposes an equal supply to meet that demand. And we also will not be providing a precise parking inventory and regulations in GIS and CAD format. So that's what the study is about, but we're really here today to hear from you. To facilitate a productive conversation, we'll organize this listening session around three big questions. Those are on the screen, and we'll move through these kind of sequentially and to hear from you for each question. So the first, just to give you an overview here, is what do you see as the parking issues in the short term or today? The second is what solutions do you think the town should consider in the short term? And then third, what are the longer term concerns that you have that the city can also address? So I'll ask a survey question for each of these to just get the kind of grease your wheels mentally on what we're thinking, and then we'll open it up for to hear from you before moving on to the next question. So you can participate in a couple of different ways. One is by raising your hand using the function, the Zoom function. I think if you click the three buttons on the top of your Zoom control, you'll see it says raise hand, and then you can be unmuted that way to provide a brief comment. You can also, if you prefer, just enter your comment into the chat, and we certainly encourage you to be active there. We'll be getting not only a recording of the session, but also a recording of the chat. So know that you'll be heard that way as well. And then I just want to ask that we try to keep the discussion clear by focusing first on the short-term issues, and then please hold your kind of longer-term needs until that third question, just so we can all kind of be on the same page as we move through the listening session.
So a quick thing, Brent.
Yes, Jeff.
And Brian. So we don't have, it isn't set up right now with a chat function that everyone can see. So it's set up as a Q&A. which is fine. I just want to emphasize to let everybody know that we are seeing what everybody is typing in, and we'll address them verbally, either Brent or I, when there's sort of after we get through the Menti portion. So we will be mentioning the things that you say through the chat, just to let everybody know. So feel free to do that. We may not answer them right away because we're just doing this as a dialogue, but we'll bring those up.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in on that, Jeff. Okay, well, let's move to the first question. What are the short-term parking issues that exist right now? So again, God willing, you can open up menti.com and enter the code at the top of the screen. And this is just a free-form answer. We always think it's good to kind of see what other people are thinking. So just go ahead and enter your answer there. You can feel free to enter more than one answer if you'd like. And those should pop up on the screen shortly. None. It's going to be a quick study, Jeff. Right. So we are seeing some, it looks like some concerns about how to find parking, wayfinding, lack of signage, needing to drive around to look for a spot. I'm also seeing that if folks can't find a spot quickly, they leave. Related to that, I suppose, is people who are wanting to make a quick errand, and so they don't want to walk a long way to make a quick errand. More about signage. That seems like a real concern here. And then I'm seeing right in the middle of the screen there the kind of balance between the need for spaces to accommodate employee parking and business parking. Meters not working, okay. And then MBTA construction, the removal of spaces due to or to accommodate that construction. Yes, I should say these are all consistent with much of what we've heard through the course of the study. So, or sorry, just even in our introduction, as we've been talking with city staff. So it sounds like there's a lot of shared concerns here. Oops, I'm sorry about that. Go ahead, Jeff.
So a couple things from the chat. For our poll, we didn't put in, we had for none of the above and didn't include residents. So I think that's an important piece. This is focused on downtown, this particular mini study, but I think it's important to understand that yes, right outside the downtown, in part of the downtown area, there are residents who live and park, and that is going to be discussed as well. So that was one comment. A second is that this is not the first time the town has studied parking. In fact, most towns have been studied parking for the last 50 years. So yes, we have a copy of previous studies, have looked at those as well as other memos from the chamber and other comments about parking. So we recognize we're not coming in fresh on this. Those were, I guess, a summary of some of the comments.
Thanks. And I'm just gonna pop over to another window here. I'm not able to scroll down in the window that all of you are looking at just to see if we've got some additional answers. Yeah, we're seeing enough parking for people to park close to downtown businesses, concerns about traffic, not enough signage, a disconnect between what's available and what is claimed as needed. I think there's some concerns here about the time availability of parking. 1 hour may not be enough for certain kinds of trips. Another person mentioning that people aren't willing to walk more than a block, that there's lots of parking a few blocks away, but people are not always aware of their parking choices. One person says here, I can find a space when I need it, but it can take time, which again maybe points to or connects to some of the issues around signage, knowing where parking is available. Here's a person who says, would love parking in a core prioritized area for differently abled people and quick errands. Those of us who can walk a few blocks for a book should be compelled to do so. And then one person mentioning here that that older folks have a difficult time accomplishing tasks, sometimes within the time limits that are available. So I just want to mention I appreciate the kind of bringing in the perspective of that different people have different abilities and different time limitations, and so we obviously are trying to balance all of that. So
A few
thanks
more
for
items, a few more items from the
Yeah.
chat.
Go ahead, Jeff.
We've been sort of talking about short term, like we've heard about needing to run in and do an errand, and longer term, like you want to have dinner. But then there's some of these medium term ones that really are an hour, and so that's another one. And someone commented, yes, the way it's set up, we can't scroll the screen. We apologize.
Yes, sorry about that.
Read them. So.
Yes, we're 2 years into doing Zoom for everything, and I still haven't quite figured that one out. So thanks for bearing with us. I think now's a good time for us to just to hear from you more directly. We've budgeted about 10 minutes for each of these 3 questions. So why don't you attendees use that raise your hand function, and then Brian will unmute you, and we will be listening attentively to what you have to say on the topic of short-term parking issues that exist right now.
All right, I'm going to elevate Pat Fortin and John Stevens, and Pat's going to go first.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep, all
Go
good.
right ahead.
Brent, this is awesome. Thank you very much. And I think a challenge historically, I am on the Waterfield Task Force and been in the chamber for 25 years. And I think a huge challenge short term is a lot of the parking that's being disrupted is employee parking. There's over 800 employee passes that are distributed, and most of the employees park in the areas that are going to be disrupted. And I think your challenge is going to be figuring out what to do with those people, because if employees end up on the street, the chamber 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I don't know exactly when, found a solution to get employees off the street, make it easy, affordable, cheap. The town was great in giving free passes, and I think we ended up at $10 thanks to Mike and Rich and all the selectmen. So that it was easy for employees that weren't making a lot of money to get off the street and have a pass and look in the lots. And it's worked pretty well, because employees are what kill us downtown. There's so many employees. And so you're going to have a challenge when you lose. You're going to lose a lot of the employee parking. And those guys are going to go right back to the street. And then you have a huge battle on your hands. So I think I'm not a retailer. I'm in a service business, but I think that's a massive problem when you lose Waterfield and you lose Aberdeen and you lose Laraway through this whole construction between MBTA and then eventually Waterfield. You're going to have a massive problem with 400 or 500 employees at a time trying to go down. There's already stories of there's tenants leaving downtown because they think parking is going to be so difficult. There's some story of a big law firm that's downtown that's already leaving and not renewing their lease because they're afraid. They're in Waterfield. They park in Waterfield. They're losing their lot. So I think that's a huge problem you have to deal with. So I'm psyched you guys are here. I give the selectmen credit for hiring you. Thank you for being here. And I think it's a huge plus for the downtown for you guys to be at least trying to find solutions. It's not easy, but thank you.
Thanks for weighing in, Pat.
John Stevens is next. You should be able to unmute yourself, John.
Thank you very much, Brian. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. My principal concern is that I am a resident on Vine Street. Much of the discussion here seems to be focused solely on business development. There are a number of parking problems on Vine Street. People who visit the downtown, people who take the commuter rail, not now, of course, but that's going to be in the future. And there is no enforcement on Vine Street. For example, people park on the east side of Vine Street where parking is not permitted. Some time ago, 3 decades actually, when 35 Vine Street was built,
It's Rich.
the owners put in a very nice sodded space next between the sidewalk and the street. That was gone within 6 months because people parked illegally. There is some signage, it is always ignored. That's my principal concern, and I hope that the select board will consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Gail Freeman Why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and right ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just want to echo a little of what Patrick said. I own a business on the corner of Waterfield and Church. I actually have just expanded, so I own essentially 3 businesses, a gift shop, an art studio, and now a pottery studio. I grew up in the town. I raised my kids in the town. I saw a giant for lease sign on that building, on that corner for a very long time, which was, I think, incredibly sad given that it's sort of right when you come into the town. But the idea that I've already lost 5 parking spaces because of the horrible accident that happened right outside our studio. The Waterfield lot is being developed, which is great, but the problem of parking that I've grown up with in this town is not being addressed at the same time. And the issue of parking is being politicized when really the concern for people who are businesses, and I am very empathetic to the gentleman who spoke before, for residents as well. You know, you go to a town of like Lexington and they have a huge parking lot and a place for people to go and park at a reasonable price and be able to support local businesses. And even then it's tough for them. So I feel very concerned that we are looking to bring more and more development into the town, but we're still not addressing the use of the town by consumers, as well as people who want to live here. We just seem to be kicking the can down the road, and it's been going on ever since I've lived here. So I'm very hopeful that that we're finally getting to a point with all of this construction that it's reaching a boiling point that will actually enable some change, something to happen to try to make the downtown more viable for customers, for businesses, for residents.
Brent, I don't know how much time we have, Brent, but we have a few more hands.
Yeah, I think we've got time for one more question. Or I'm sorry, one more speaker.
All right, Heidi had her hand up first, so we're gonna go with Heidi DeLeo.
Hi.
Hey, Heidi, go right ahead.
Hi. Thank you very much for holding this. I hope there's a lot of people in attendance on this call. I echo just about everything that Gail just said. And I think it's important for you to hear from as many business owners in the downtown area as possible. So I have a small retail business on Thompson Street. And while I don't have shoppers that come in and spend an enormous amount of time, they are doing that. They're coming in to shop with me along with going to other places. People don't have enough time to park and get like their nails done and get a cup of coffee. I think our parking used to be about 2 hours and then it was down to an hour and there was no in between. I feel like it should be about 90 minutes. And the other thing is we talk about what the problem is a lot, and I'm really looking forward to hearing solutions. And I think we really need to think outside the box. I've been an advocate for having some type of shuttle for many years. And I really think that we don't have many places to add parking on in downtown Winchester. And we need to look at other solutions outside of the center of town. Additionally, I've lived in Winchester more than 35 years, and I've raised my son here who's now 19 in college, and I've been a consumer for many years. So and I was a commuter. So I understand from all angles. And as far as Vine Street is concerned, I understand that as well. I mean, I belong to the temple there, and there's never any parking when we were holding services. So I don't know how we can create more parking. So I would like to hear ideas of thinking outside the box and what else we can do. Again, thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. And I have great news for you, which is that the next question is about solutions. So perhaps you'll hear something you like there. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. I think it's time we move on to the next question, unfortunately. Thank you for those of you that were able to speak, and for those of you that weren't. Sorry about that, but please share your share what you'd like to share in the Q&A, and we'll definitely be seeing that and be making note of that, just as we are of those who've spoken. So moving on to the next item here. Again, you can enter your put your input into the menti.com space. This is which short-term solutions to parking issues would you like the town staff to consider? So this is in effect, what solutions to the problem that you told us about. So I'll give everybody a minute to weigh in there. Are you all seeing this on your Menti screen?
I still see the previous question.
I'm sorry about this. I don't know why we tested this before, and I'm not sure why.
You could give it, just go back one and forward one and just see if that changes it.
Sure.
If not, then we can just, people can just speak on this topic.
Yeah.
So. Don't know. We
No?
can just continue with the conversation. I think that's good.
Yeah, well, you see the question. So if you wouldn't mind giving us your answer in the Q&A, and we can certainly read some of those as they come in. If there's anybody that would like to jump in and speak up right away, please raise your hand.
Artie Bennis, and then Ben Keeler, and then Darren Monroe. So we'll start with Artie first. Artie, go right ahead.
My name is Artie Bennis, and I've been a small business owner in Winchester Center for 44 years. I've been a resident of Winchester for 40 years plus. My children were educated in the Winchester Public Schools, and now my grandchildren are being educated in the Winchester Public Schools. My concern is that there just isn't enough parking now. I have a list of a couple of pages of comments from my customers, and I'm not going to take the time to read them. All I can say is not one says it's convenient to find parking in the center. I can't impress upon you how important parking is. And I just want to make a small analogy, and then I will sign off. Stop and Shop right now has approximately 152 parking spaces in front of their business. That doesn't include what they have on the side for employee parking and for loading and unloading of their merchandise. And my question is, how long do you think Stop and Shop would stay in business if those 152 parking spaces suddenly disappeared? That is my analogy as to what is happening to Winchester Center. And I am fearful for the small business owners and the small property owners whose livelihoods are being affected in an adverse way due to the loss of parking. And also let me say thank you for our select board, and thank you for what you're doing to help us with our parking situation. And also, I just want to say that I am a strong proponent of affordable housing. And my concern is the fact that we are going to lose these 150 parking spaces, and you're going to see many businesses suffer. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Artie, this is Beth. Would you be willing to share with us in writing the comments you received from your patrons?
Absolutely. I have them right
That'd
here.
be great.
They're available for anybody that wants to come see them, and I'm more than happy to make copies and submit them to you, Beth.
Okay,
And
that'd be great.
Congratulations on your appointment
Thank you.
I'm very proud of a fellow Tufts alumni. And yeah, my degree is
Thank you.
civil engineering from Tufts, so I wish you the best. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Artie, that would be great if we could share that. Either just take pictures with your cell phone and email them to us, or someone can come by and chat with you and see them. I think that's really important. So thanks.
All right, Darren and then Ben.
Hi, this is Darren Muction. I own Catch a Falling Star. Obviously, I've been here 25 years, and in the 25 years, parking has always been a discussion. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, but lately with outdoor dining and all the construction going on and the Waterfield deal coming up, I'm very concerned about the longevity of a small business like myself. I think the town has to really take a serious look at this. I think maybe one of the solutions that maybe could help is that during the summer, it seems like there's more parking available because the schools are not in session. And I think if we could take the teachers outside the center and don't allow them park up in Mystic Valley Parkway or up near the Unitarian Church, I think it's Unitarian Church. If we open up those spaces and we take the teachers parking and we maybe bust them out and then go back and forth, it would open a minimal amount of spaces, but it would be better. I have customers who utilize that space in the summer. I mean, there's less customers, obviously, because a lot of people go away, but there's more opportunity when school is not in session. When there's a day off or school's out of session during the school year, parking gets better. When they get back into school, parking disappears. I agree with Moment. I think an hour max is not enough for people to have lunch, to walk around to multiple stores. And I have customers who complain to me about it's just not enough time to do what they want to do in the center. And I don't know what else you can do. I mean, if you take the Waterfield parking lot away, it's going to hurt us. When the construction starts, it's going to hurt us. And I'm afraid for all the small businesses in town. But one of the things I can think you need to do is get all employees and teachers outside the center and open that up for maybe 1 hour parking all the way up and down Mystic. I know it's not your road. I think it's a state-run road, but on one side, the other side, but up near the Unitarian Church. Because the teachers come, they park, and it's gone all day. So maybe that's one solution. It's minimal, but it's better than the alternative. I mean, we're losing customers, and I'm telling you, I have a restaurant right in front of them. I want to be a good neighbor. I want them to be successful, but I also want my own business to be successful. And with 25, I think, spaces gone because of dining, that hurts. And I sit here and wonder, I have customers complain that come down that say, I can't find a parking space, and they go home. And it's frustrating. And the town really, really has to, if they want small business and they don't want a vibrant downtown, this has to be considered and something has to be done about it. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Darren, a quick question.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on the general, just from talking to your fellow business owners, around this idea of where the employees of businesses park? Do you think, because you said if it's possible to get some of the employees, including employees for your business, do you think there's some consensus around the willingness to work with employees of these downtown businesses to park slightly farther away in order to open up downtown?
It's the funniest thing. I don't know why it's so hard. And I hire a lot of high school students, and a lot of them drive because they're up there in age. And I said, you can't park downtown. And it's funny, I come in, I see them park right on the bridge, or I see them parking far. And I said, you cannot park here. And I said, you got to change this habit. And even with some of my staff, I'm trying to tell them they can't park downtown. I hire a lot of Winchester residents. I hire a lot of Winchester students. I say, leave your car at home, walk downtown. I even offered to pick them up and drop them off. The less cars, if you take every business in town, I guarantee about 70% of them probably have most of their employees parking downtown or moving their cars around. I see it. I see it every day. You hustle, you move your car from one spot to another spot. But if we could get all the businesses together and explain how critical it is in the short term because of with the limitations of parking, it would make a difference. Because I'm telling you, a lot of spaces get taken up, a lot of spaces. And for myself, I do a lot of moving a product between my other 2 stores. I have a store in Lexington and Belmont. And I have a hard time just finding the spot so I can load boxes into my store to move toys to other stores. It's really hard. And if I have to park my car, I can't anymore. And like I said, I'm a good neighbor. I want these restaurants to be successful. But you add on to a situation by outdoor dining, What's happening right now, it just puts a lot more pressure on businesses like myself, Artie. I mean, studio on the comment, all of us, we're all, I mean, I've heard customers complain about everything, about it's no fun to come downtown anymore because they can't park. And but I think that's a good point. I think if we could train our employees and get all businesses together saying, okay, this is a lot, it's not going to cost you anything, park here. And if it's not too long of a walk, a lot of people get nervous about walking too far. I mean, we have a society that just doesn't want to move, but but if we could just get them outside the center, it would open up spaces, because I know, I see it. I see employees parking all over downtown. I'm telling you, during certain times of day, I bet you 60% of the spots are employees that they're working within the center. I know what I see, the people coming out of their cars and just don't want to move their car to someplace else because they don't know. My employees park down the Mystic Valley Parkway. It's hard now, it's full. They don't know where to go. So I think more education and more training of small business and staff to teach them that these spots are here. And if you, this is where you can park and the spaces are there and it's not too far of a walk, or there's a shuttle service, it would help.
Great, thanks, Darren. Brian, do you have the queue?
Yep, there's Ben Keeler has had his hand up for a while, and then there are a number of solutions that were listed in the Q&A, maybe not necessarily something to react to, but there are a lot of small solutions, or sorry, short-term solutions listed there.
And
Ben,
I'll read off those once we have more of the testimony.
great.
Yeah, could we hear from one more person, and then I think
Yep.
we'll hear the listed the Q&A solutions, and then we should move on to the next question.
Yep, Ben Keeler, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm Ben Keeler. I'm the chairman of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Committee in town. Obviously, I appreciate you guys taking the time. Appreciate the select board making it a priority, and obviously, something that we've discussed at length with multiple members of the town staff. It's one of our top priorities, long-term priorities, is to help figure out ways to alleviate parking downtown for commercial interests, for the benefit of downtown residents and really all the different stakeholders that have already raised their hand today. Short term, I think about three different things. One, and this is probably a good start tonight, is just a really well thought out, coordinated public relations campaign. We have to tell people, we being, making sure that we're flooding with information about where we want them to park. Obviously, it's the only way we're going to be able to do that is through education. So I think a really well coordinated PR campaign is an absolute must. We have to get ahead of this, or else we will find ourselves in a really difficult spot where people aren't going to return. The second idea, and it's been raised, is definitely short term busing or transportation. There are, you want to think about outside the box. There are the buses that are bus, I guess, that we bought for the Jenks Center. There are hospital buses that are running regular routes today. And they have shown some, flexibility or desire to potentially work with us on different things. But there are opportunities for us to set up, satellite parking spots. And obviously, if this is a significant need for local businesses, and we know that it is, and that includes restaurants, that maybe we do need to work together and figure out how to incent folks and actually provide the really efficient support to get people that are working downtown in and out efficiently, and maybe it is through busing. And third, the prior gentleman was speaking about Mystic Valley Parkway. Mystic Valley Parkway both ways, Church Street, even Main Street, where we want to invest long term as a town, and to develop that North Main Street area. All of those areas have additional parking. we just need to prioritize it somehow. If we know that the parking's not going to be available where we want it, which is right next to the Rotary downtown, we should, figure out ways, again, to incent people to possibly use some of those closer areas that may not just be, right next to the businesses. Again, a quick and easy way to say there are near downtown that people choose not to park because they want to look for a spot in town. Again, we're going to probably need to change some of that thinking and the way people operate, at least for the short term. And so I'd put it on, this group to try and figure out the best way to incent people to use those kind of near parking outlets that maybe they're just not considering today. Thank you.
Right. All right, I'm going to go through a couple of comments. One comment is the shuttle idea, interesting. I think, the proof is always in the pudding on those because they have to come frequently enough. They need to go where people need to go, but that's an important one. Pricing, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later as a mechanism to make it so that people can find parking when they want it, but it just costs a little bit more. So how do we value these things? A couple short-term solutions people have put in the chat, more bike racks, thinking about other ways of getting people downtown. There is going to be a separate traffic, bicycle, and pedestrian study, so we can talk more about how that connects with getting people to access downtown. Thinking about the combination of using, how can we collaborate to use some of the private lots, open it to public use, so when there are places that are being used and not used. Bring back the Win bus. It was inexpensive, convenient, and a great option. Today's adults did, the chats are moving around too much. I think Brian must be clicking on them. Thinking about how kids are getting around, today's adults did not, as a rule, drive to school. So just the culture of how people are getting around have changed, and that changes expectations. A comment about, even hiring high school kids, and they're like, oh yeah, I got to park right next to the business I'm working at, and then the patrons can't park there. A comment about the restaurant, curbside parking, not necessarily a solution, although I guess not have as many. Student parking, is that an issue? I guess that's a question, Brent, that we should just understand. Is it just teachers or is it also students? And a comment about enforcement, multiple jurisdictions, and another comment about shuttle, being willing to use it if it was convenient. Unloading and deliveries, that's an issue. And so I think part of this also is the balance of being able to have those commercial spaces and thinking about time of day for those. Protecting downtown businesses during holiday, that's certainly something we can talk about. I know the city of Boston does the free holiday parking, which always irritated me because for the people that took transit there, it's like, okay, well, they're not valued. So I think not necessarily making things free, that doesn't necessarily work, but thinking about the holidays as a really critical time for parking downtown and coming up with a program that might allow us to do some of that PR could be a good short-term thing. Updated parking map, there is one, and we're gonna be working with the town to update that. And that's what I got for that. Back to you, Brent.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. That was some really, there's a lot of really excellent ideas there. So thanks for weighing in. We're going to move to the final question here, and we are a little short on time. So as we ask everybody to weigh in, if you could keep your answers brief, that'll just help make sure that we can hear from as many folks as possible. Okay, all right, this must have been up on the screen already. Okay. So the question here is, what longer term parking concerns do you have? I'm gonna read some of these. And please feel free to add to this or use the Q&A again. We need more parking, a parking garage. The town's growing, but there's little space for parking, more people, how to accommodate growth. So lots of concerns about growth here. new development not being met with or causing parking loss. The loss of about 150 spaces, not enough spaces close to the retail establishment, a resistance to metered parking to manage turnover, the kind of need to balance on and off street parking and where employees go. So I think some of these are long-term and short-term kind of issues. A lack of capacity near central businesses is another issue there. And then the permanent loss of parking spaces from both development and the MBTA construction. So in our few remaining minutes, let's hear from a few folks. If you'd like to enter your questions into the chat or unmute yourselves. And while you do that, Jeff, are we getting anything in the Q&A?
Yeah, but we can do some live comments first, and then I can do a quick summary.
Okay, Brian.
Sure. There's one person who has spoken before, but they're the only person that their hand is raised. So Artie, I guess, keep it brief according to the consultants. You should. Yep, there you go.
Okay, very quickly. We have metered parking on the Larry lot and also at the beginning of the Aboriginal lot. It's $1 an hour. If you want to get your hair done, you want to dinner, you want to go to lunch, excuse me, it's 35 minutes in Boston, spend $30 at a parking garage. You can't change habits to park, and I don't know how you change.
I'm not sure what is going on, but obviously it's some connection issue there. I think we're going to move on over to Pat. Pat, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yep, am I live?
Yep,
Good.
go
And
right
I don't
ahead.
want to, if other people were there, I would have definitely stayed off. I think I'd like to send you a letter that the Chamber of Commerce sent out recently. I mean, there's between outside dining, the MBTA project, the Waterfield project, and probably another, 200 units coming to downtown with very limited on-site parking. I think you guys should look at zoning. I mean, most of these developments are half space per unit, not bedrooms. So you have potentially, 400 or 500 bedrooms coming, and you can debate what the car number is going to be in there. I think parking garage is really, I know it's been talked about for 40 years. I grew up here. It's a bear and it's a difficult problem, but there is 2.8 million being spent on the Waterfield project to add 40 spaces in the basement, which seems like a kooky number to add 40 spaces, which you're giving up 93 is really going to be, I don't want to say a waste of money, but I wonder what you guys could do with 2.8 million to find a solution to put 100, 150 spaces somewhere. So I would just throw that out as something for you to explore and look at, because potentially you could pull that money out of the Waterfield project, tell them not to build any town spaces, and find a solution somewhere, maybe with a private public partnership, where some money's invested or something along those lines. Because with the growth downtown, which I think is great, and affordable housing's great, the Chamber's all for affordable housing downtown, but parking is only going to get worse. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Pat.
Great. A couple comments. I think employees and employers could be better about not parking in customer spaces. It's not enough, but it would help. Lack of commercial parking spaces. Comment. Let's see. This one's long, so I have to be quick. Thinking about commuters as potential customers. and trying to understand what the customer needs are of those who are coming to the commuter rail anyways, and seeing about leveraging that. And again, looking for other kind of private locations that we might be able to put additional parking. In the past, this isn't the first time garage locations have been looked at. Past garage locations have been deemed unfeasible, but needs to be revisited. And again, agreeing with Pat, thinking about the 2.8 million and seeing what's the best use of doing that. And another parking garage is expensive, but that's what we need. All right, so we're going to try to keep this to an hour. We're pretty close. Brent, where are we?
We're at 56 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're
should
very
we move
close.
to the next?
Yes. This is you, Jeff.
Great. All right. So, we've been working with communities of your size. I mean, I guess there's there's the good news and bad news. The good news is, in a way, this is not the first community that's been struggling over parking. So there's a lot of great work that's been happening over the last, especially around the last 20 years, to try to address these issues. The bad news is that parking always remains painful to talk about, especially when it comes to solutions, which is not somehow magically being able to create more spots right in front of the places where the businesses are and people want to park. So these are things that other communities of similar sizes have been struggling with and trying to work on. So the point of this part of the presentation is not to say these are all the things we're definitely doing. This is just to kind of set the stage for talking about this with TTAC and with others. So this issue that came up today, this walking distance balance, there are some visits where you really want to park right out in front and it's only going to be a couple minutes. And there are other times when, if you're going to be dining for a couple hours, walking 5 minutes doesn't seem like it should be that big a deal. It's more of a cultural thing, as someone had mentioned. We had talked about this on-street and off-street, trying to maximize different time uses. So the MBTA spots are used at certain times and not at other times. Other private locations or residential streets are used at certain times and not other times. Probably the biggest one that causes the most agita is this idea of using price signals, which is kind of another way of saying trying to figure out how to charge people so that the value of getting the space when you want it is worth it. And I think a key thing is one of the reasons why people really struggle around pricing for parking is this combination of people worry that it changes the feel of a small town if all of a sudden you have to start charging for parking. And the second is that it's just another attempt by government to try to make money and use that as an income stream. And so it's really important to emphasize that the use of pricing is an income stream. It is management. It is management of the asset that we have and setting the value of it such that it is worth it for people to have the parking close when it's worth it for them, and being willing to walk a little farther when you have a use that doesn't matter as much. One of the things about some of the new technologies is that we can vary by time of day a lot better than we have been able to in the past. And the time of day really is critical. If there's like a 2-hour period that is really a struggle to park and you make it more expensive at that time, then two things happen. People are like, okay, I really want to go at this time, and so I'm willing to pay for it. And you always find a spot. Or you say, I'm just going to go an hour later and pay less, but still always find a spot. We've talked about this a little bit, other ways of accessing downtown. I mean, it's a really great place to be able to walk and bike, but there's a lot of people that just don't feel safe on a bike getting there. There's a lot of people that do, but there's not enough people that are willing to do that. There's the path, there's traffic calming methods. So just thinking about access to the street, and especially people that are maybe live a 10-minute walk away, I think there still is a traditional sense of like, okay, but I should be able to drive and park right in front of the restaurant that I want to go to. And then this was talked about a little bit, but really the needs of people with disabilities, elders, and really making sure that it's inviting to them and making sure that the spots that are close are really available to those folks. And then thinking about special events and thinking about the school and the connection between the downtown and parking in the school. So those are just some of the things that we're going to want to be looking at as part of the longer term solutions that aren't just building a garage, but that are saying, how do we manage it? And I think that the comments that we had about trying to manage employee parking is really going to be critical, because I do think that does end up taking up more space than people realize. Another combination of things is that in places like Winchester, and I don't know how many of you might have experienced this, but places like Winchester, sometimes 30% of all the traffic is people looping around looking for parking. So then there's this combination of saying, well, there's too much traffic, and so we need to keep wide streets, but then it's because people are looping around looking for parking. So thinking about ways of messaging where parking is, and changing kind of the wayfinding and just understanding of what's available and not, I think can also go a long way. Next slide. And if people do have comments, you can continue to put things in the Q&A, and we'll be reviewing those things later. All right, so we want to wrap up with, what is the plan for this study? This is not like a 2-year massive kind of highly analytical, where we go and we hyper measure every single use of all the parking spaces study. This has 3 components that we're expecting to finish by the end of kind of before next summer. And has these components. First, what kind of engagement we're going to do. You heard from one of the TTAC members. That's going to be an important piece. We have tonight's feedback session, 2 TTAC workshops. One is to focus on the short-term recommendations. We're going to want to do that in October in preparation for this kind of short-term signage work that we want to do by Thanksgiving is our goal. And we sort of talk through as a team, the town and the consultants, of like, can we really do that? And I think there's, like some folks here have said, this is not the first time this is getting talked about. You know, the chamber has made suggestions about some of these changes, and I think we're ready to act. We just need to come up with a rational plan to do that. So that's part of the rapid implementation that we're hoping to work on early November and get it implemented by Thanksgiving. There does need to be a town meeting vote, so we want to get that organized on short order by early November. Then we're going to work on other short-term recommendations. This is really focused on this issue of the MBTA closure and what kind of interim things can be done for that. But as we talked with the town and setting up this study, even though the pressure really is about these short-term recommendations, we don't want to lose sight of the long-term planning, because it takes years to really think through and build the consensus among everybody as to what kinds of things can be done, especially when it comes to pricing, or when it comes to shuttles, or kind of changing cultural expectations of how parking works. So we really want to get started on these long-term recommendations and just be setting the stage for that. And we want to do that and get some ideas together by April, thinking about some of the things I mentioned, demand management, but really putting some of those ideas on the table and setting the stage for what the town should be doing. A key thing that happens when you have a situation like the MBTA construction is it creates this point in time where everybody has to shift behavior. And so it is an opportunity to not just say, all right, when the MBTA is done, let's just open everything back up the way it was before, but let's take these couple years to think about what do we want this long-term parking strategy to be, so that we're not sitting here having the same conversation in 4 years, a year after the MBTA finishes its construction, and say, all right, so what are we going to do about the parking problem? So we want to try to get ahead of that and recognize that that is a longer term thing, and we want to wrap this up by May. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Rich and Beth, if you have any final concluding thoughts.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Brent, for leading tonight's discussion. Thank you, everyone, for participating tonight. We appreciate all the feedback and comments. I've seen a lot of comments go into the question and answers, which is fantastic. And certainly all the comments that you've put into the different boxes certainly help. And this is, the kickoff and the start to this process, as Jeff has indicated. There'll be certainly more opportunities as we go forward. We seek, as you can see from this timeline, to really start implementing some of these changes quickly. So I appreciate everyone participating tonight. I don't know if Mike or Beth had anything they wanted to add tonight.
Good. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, I'm good as well, and just appreciate everybody's time. And we are we have many of your comments here in the Q&A, but also please feel free to email myself or Meg White, who's the town's project manager, with any additional thoughts you have, and we can forward those on to the consultants. So thank you very much.
And if people want to just be informed of when other things are going to happen, if you email Meg, then we can send out a note if and when other stuff is happening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Recording stopped.